Sorry, man, I need to take this. The chirping was his cell phone ringer. I'm with my lawyer. He sighed into the phone. Nah, man, I can talk. The plaintiff began speaking to the unknown caller in a loud voice that filled the small room, making it impossible for anyone to do anything else but wait. I told you she'd be like that, man. Didn't I say that? As he continued to talk, I took notice of his phone. It was a nice phone. Top-of-the-line model. I think it had just been released a few days ago. It was the kind of phone that came with one of those electronic personal assistants that you can talk to and it can understand you. It can make appointments for you, dial numbers, and even look up topics on the internet for you. I looked down at my own phone, which was sitting on the table next to my file. It was an older model, a couple years old. It didn't have any of the bells or whistles, and in fact, was barely able to hold a charge through lunchtime. It didn't even have a web browser on it. Actually, I think it did, but it was so outdated that it did not work well, or really at all. The disgust was welling up within me, and I wanted nothing more than to smack the phone out of his pudgy, smelly hand and tell him to grow up. And then I remembered I am paid by the hour, and I asked Mr. Woodrow where the restroom was. 4 hours later, I was driving back to the office. Mentally, I was going through the checklist in my mind of what I still needed to accomplish that day. The list was extensive. I forgot one thing. I wasn't sure what that was, but I was sure I had forgotten something. As I tried to remember what I had forgotten, the image of that fat bastard flashed into my mind again. I was sure that he was back at home, watching television and eating, while I still had several hours of work ahead of me, along with an hour commute, and if I was lucky, leftovers that I could reheat in the microwave. The thought that that parasite was allowed to exist, while the rest of us supported him, was enough to make me sick. Or drink. It was at that moment that I decided it was too late to go back to the office, and maybe a little too early to go home. I decided that a stop at Lady Gray's was in order. In college, I studied lab medicine. Yes, I am aware of the fact that I am a lawyer. Nevertheless, I have an undergraduate degree in lab medicine. I think that most people do not realize that a law degree is a professional degree. I don't mean to sound condescending here. I didn't know any of this either until I started down the path. But a law degree is a professional degree that requires you to obtain a 4-year undergraduate degree before you can even apply to law school. Some go into undergraduate school as pre-law majors. After 4 years studying pre-law, you're not really qualified to do much of anything else besides go to law school. That is a great way to spend tens of thousands of dollars, right? When I started college, I was working part-time in a hospital laboratory as a charter. Basically, my job was to take lab reports up to the floor and place them in the patient's charts on the floors. This was obviously in the time before hospital management systems, which of course now automate the whole process. When I was not physically on the floor stuffing charts, I sat in the lab and helped the lab techs prepare samples for testing. The work was easy and mildly interesting, for a high school kid anyway. It was about this time that one of the lab techs, a woman named Terry Mansfield, resigned her position to go to law school. Terry and I were not very close, but I knew her. When I heard that she had left to go to law school, I looked into it a little bit deeper. Basically, she went to college, became a tech, and then worked a few years as a tech before returning to school. Genius. That made perfect sense to me. I had always wanted to be a lawyer, in much the same way we all wanted to be firemen and cowboys growing up. They look cool, and we wanted to be that cool. But the truth is, we know very little of what they actually go through. I was that way with lawyers. All I knew was that they tended to make lots of money, and they looked cool in movies. The idea of going to school for lab medicine made sense. I would go to college, get a job, and make real money. Then I could return to school, get my law degree, and essentially have 2 careers to choose from. That was the plan anyway. I went through all of that to explain my relationship with Lady Gray's. Lady Gray's was a pub that I frequented in college. I attended college at a university hospital located in the city. The pub was located across the street from the hospital's emergency room. Convenient, right? It was at Lady Gray's that I learned to drink, and the place that I courted my wife. It was also the place that I met my first bona fide celebrity.